Hello again, it's me. Okay, so we just had a wonderful discussion about Sarah, and to continue on, I wanted to introduce Hagar, our next daughter of grace, in our study of the women of the Bible. And I think it's wonderful within Sarah's story, intertwined in there is Hagar. And they talk a little bit about her in Sarah's story. Now we're going to delve a little bit deeper into her and her situation. And so I just wanted to spend a few minutes introducing her to you. And I'm going to read a little excerpt from my Bible like I did with, I think it was Sarah. And then I'm going to read again from our book, Daughters of Grace, so that down the road, if anybody doesn't have the book, or for those that maybe have trouble finding time to actually read from their book, but still want to be thinking about the concepts throughout the week, hopefully this will be helpful to you. So I'm going to read a little bit about Hagar in my study Bible here. It's entitled, Rejected but Not Abandoned. The Egyptian maidservant, Hagar, was acquired by Sarai, later known Sarah, when she and Abram, together with his nephew Lot, moved from Canaan to Egypt to escape a famine. In ancient Near Eastern households, the rank of personal maidservant to the master's wife reflected honor, obedience, and trustworthiness. However, the position stripped Hagar, or anyone who's a maidservant to the master's wife, I lost my place, all of her personal rights, making her totally subject to Sarai's every wish. Because Sarai was sterile, Hagar's surrogate maternity was perfectly legal, though a clear violation of God's law, Genesis 2:24, and evidence of a lack of faith on the part of Abram and Sarai, which we talked about in class today. I want to point that out because I think it's important that we understand that though the Bible records things that happened or that socially were acceptable, it does not always mean that it was accepted by God. So when we see things like this, or multiple wives, don't confuse the two. God isn't condoning it. This is just a record of what happened. It's not the same as God saying, this is what you need to do. There are pieces of scripture and passages that God is very clear about what his expectations are, and we can talk about those. But in this instance, it's just telling what the social norm was, not what God expected. Physiologically and emotionally, however, Hagar changed radically with her pregnancy. Sarai responded to Hagar's pride and self-importance with a vindictive accusation against her husband, who insisted that Sarai assume full responsibility for her maid. Because of Sarai's mistreatment, Hagar ran away. To this fugitive slave, God revealed himself. "You are the God who sees," were her words in Genesis 16:13. In tender grace, he met her immediate need and allowed her to experience his presence. Hagar's legacy speaks poignantly to the growing number of disadvantaged and dispossessed women. Under no circumstance can they escape God's watchful care. As God provided for Hagar, he can and will provide for every woman. Twice the angel of the Lord came to her aid, Genesis 16:7 and 21:17. He was also involved with Hagar and her son in times of crisis and in the times in between, Genesis 21:20. Throughout Hagar's life, she experienced estrangement and prejudice as a foreigner, hardship and abuse as a servant, grief and abandonment as an unwed pregnant woman, and hopeless despair on 2 occasions as she faced imminent death. Yet despite all these difficulties, Hagar responded to the God who addressed her. She did not get compensation from Sarah and Abraham. Her life was never easy, but God did reward her. In the all-seeing God, Hagar found refuge and life. I thought that was wonderful. So that's a little glimpse into Hagar. And now we're just going to take a quick look at what our book says about her and the couple of questions that are asked there. Hagar, Genesis chapter 16 and chapter 21. When we think of biblical heroines, Hagar does not usually make the list. She was a servant of Abraham and Sarah, a foreigner, and a woman in distress. But we also see that she was a woman seen by the Lord. Hagar was caught in a mess that was not her choice. Her mistress, Sarah, who had not had any children, concocted a plan to do things her way and provide her husband an heir through her servant Hagar. As a servant, Hagar had no choice in the matter. Abraham listened to Sarah. Hagar became a wife to Abraham, and soon she became pregnant. Sarah dealt harshly with Hagar, and we see a pregnant and likely very scared Hagar flee into the wilderness. It is in the wilderness that Hagar is met by the angel of the Lord. This was likely a theophany, an appearance of God himself speaking to Hagar that day. This seems evident because he speaks in first person as the Lord. He encourages her to return to Abraham and Sarah, but makes her a promise. Abraham had been promised a great nation, and now we see this servant girl promised that her offspring would be multiplied. The Lord tells her to name her son Ishmael, because God had heard her. Hagar then calls the Lord a unique name, El Roi, meaning the God who sees. Hagar recognized that the Lord saw her right where she was. He saw the mess she was in, and he cared enough to come to her. Later in her story, Sarah asks Hagar to leave and take Ishmael. In desperation, while in the wilderness with her son near death, the Lord appears to her again. He provides her water in the desert and hope for her weary soul. Surely her life had not turned out the way she had planned, but he is the God who sees. He had seen her every step of the way and provided for her and her son through it all. Perhaps your life has not turned out the way you had planned either. Perhaps the circumstances of life, whether caused by yourself or someone else, have left you feeling desperate and alone. There is hope. Our God is the God who sees. He hears your burdens, and he sees you right where you are. He is good, and he is faithful. He will provide water in the wilderness and hope for your soul. Our God is the God who sees. Our 3 questions. What do we learn about God and his character in the life of Hagar? What character qualities, positive or negative, do we see demonstrated in Hagar's life? What can I learn from Hagar's story that I can apply to my own life? I'm really excited about learning about Hagar. I think we can all see ourselves a little bit in her, being in a situation we didn't ask for, or being in circumstances that are out of our control, and wondering if God sees us, sees our suffering, sees our pain, our struggle. And he does. And I think this is a great way to start the week, knowing that just like Hagar, God sees us too, whether we're in the wilderness or in our homes or in the laundry room crying over the 7,000th load of laundry we've done that week. Anyway, I love you all. I hope that you have a great week, and I'm excited about digging in. I do have a little more to share later this week, probably Tuesday or Thursday, from a different book that I just found in my stash. It's called A Mile in Her Shoes, Lessons from the Lives of Old Testament Women. And so I'm going to be sharing this, I'll be sharing from this book this week about Hagar, and some from all the women in the Bible that has a little bit more factual stuff in it. So, all right, just a quick little pop on to say hello, and I love you all, and those that we didn't see today, I miss you, and I look forward to hearing from you. Please, please, please don't be shy about leaving a comment or a message, something that you found from this reading or any of the videos. Don't be afraid to leave a comment. These aren't public. They are only available to those that I send the link to. So it's not like the whole world is going to see what you say. So we can keep it private and just us. Okay? All right. Love you all. Bye-bye. And God bless you all.